We're on Daf Lamed Vav Amid Beis, and we are now learning the second halacha of Reish Lakish that we pass like Reish Lakish, and that is the case of a person who gives a gift, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's enough if he uses a lashon matana once. So let's say he's dividing up his nechasim amongst two people, and he uses a lashon Yerusha for one of these two people and a lashon matana for the other. And Rabbi Yochanan says that since he mentioned a lashon matana, then the entire divvying up of his estate is considered one matana, and even on that portion that he designated as Yerusha, it's considered a matana. The Amar Reish Lakish says no, that the din is not like that, but rather li olam lo kana achi yomar ploni uploni yirshu sada plonis uplonis shenesatim lahem b'matana v'yirashu. He uses a lashon matana to both of these people. So he opens up by saying it's a Yerusha for ploni uploni, and then he says that I've given them a matana, plonis uploni, and then the Russian. So Reish Lakish says in this case, where he mentions a lashon matana for both of them, they were both zocha, each one respectively in his portion. And here we pass like Reish Lakish ve'idach. And we said that there were three dinim in which we pass like Reish Lakish. What's the third? The snan. Again in Dinim Amenos, a Mishnah at the end of Bava Basra, Kuf Lamed Vav, HaKotzev Kol Nechasav Libno, Li'achar Mosa. He says the gift should be today, and it should be chal after my death. So this lashon of Hakna is interpreted as meaning that now my son should be kona the guf, but I'm leaving for myself, the father says, the schus achilus peiros, until I die. So at the end of the day, the father has the kinyan peiros, and the son has the kinyan aguf. So the din is the following. And this is the Mishnah in Bava Basra. Ha'av eni yochel limkar. The father can't sell his portion in the field because since the guf hanachasim he transferred it over to his son, he cannot be maknit to someone else. And even though the father has a kinyan peiros in the nechasim, that's not enough to effectuate a kinyan, at least, I mean to say a permanent kinyan, because at least for the time being, as he's alive, he can be maknit the peiros, but nothing beyond that, because the son, at the point of the father's death, will inherit the guf hasada. A ben yachalim kar, neither can the ben sell his nechasim as long as the father is alive. Mipnei shehen, meaning the peiros, b'rshus ha'av. So now the Gemara makes the following point. And this is the Sefer of the Mishnah, Mochar Ha'av B'di'eved. If the father sold the nechasim, mechurim, and sheyamusu, there's a partial mechira until the father's death, and that is for peiros. So that he's maknit to the kohen. And now the lokeach has a schus identical to that which the father had, namely schus achilus peiros, but only as long as the father is alive. When the father dies, then paka schus halokeach. Machar ben ein la lokeach klum. What schus peiros does the son have that he can be makneh to the lokeach? Right, because the schus of the peiros hashiyamos belong to the father until he dies, and only after the death of the father does the son inherit the peiros. the Itmar, Mochar ben b'chaya av. What do we do if the son sold it during his father's lifetime? Umes haben b'chaya av. And the son died before the father. Rabbi Yochanan Amar lo kana lokeach. The Gemara is going to explain why lo kana lokeach. Reish Lakish Amar kana lokeach. Like the lokeach bought from the ben the guf hanachasim. The ben owns the guf. And therefore, the lokeach, when he buys the guf hanachasim, with the death of the father, he will inherit the zchus achilas peiros, which is exactly what the ben owned b'chaya aviv and sold to the lokeach. So now the Gemara delves into the reasoning in the machlokas. Yochanan Amar lo kana lokeach. Why? If the son died during his father's lifetime, the lokeach is not acquired the nechas. And why is that? Kinyan peiros, kinyan aguf david. The father has rights to the peiros, and that's like a kinyan aguf. So the father is considered the primary owner of these orchards, of these properties, these fields, because he has the hanoah, he gets the benefit, he owns the achilus peiros. So it's almost as if he owns the guf hakarka. So the ikar tashmish hakarka is for the peiros. The ben cannot sell his father's possessions and yet it seems that when the son sells the property, the lokeach could pick up the zchus achilas peiros after the death of the father. So it means, when did the father die? Did he die before the ben died or after the ben died? He says, Ein zeh ela kasher meis ha'av tchila. The father died first. Ubishas moso chala matana shenosan libno. The uz gam yechola lachul mechiras haneches shemachar ben b'chaya. In other words, a person could sell any zchus that will, at some point in the future, come into his possession. So therefore, the sale will be chal when the zchus will come to the mocher. Now, if the mocher will never be able to pick up the zchus, like, for example, in our case where he died, so the son died before the father, so then the mechira is not valid, because the mocher, the son, was never zocher in the zchus such that he could sell it to the lokeach. Reish Lakish Amar kana lokeach. So here's where Reish Lakish disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan, and he holds a kinyan peiros lav ki kinyan guf david. that the father, since he's holding on to the Kinyan Peros, he's not considered to have the main primary dimension of the Kinyan, as if the guf was his. Rather, whoever has the Kinyan HaGuf in the Nechasim, he's considered the main primary Bailam. Therefore, even if the Ben dies b'chaya av, so the Ben died before his son, the Lokech could be Zocha. Because even during his lifetime, the Ben is considered the Bailam. He has the Kinyan HaGuf. The father only has the Schus Achilas Peros until his death. Therefore, according to Reish Lakish, since Kinyan Peros Lav Kinyan HaGuf Tomi, and the father only has a Schus Achilas Peros, therefore the son has the primary Kinyan, and he can sell it to the Lokeh. So the Mishnah tells us that if a man is Kones as Yevimto and she turns out to be Muberes and she gives birth, if the Vlad is not a Vlad Shel Kayoma, then Yikayim, he can remain married to his Yevamot, because the Vlad is not Shel Kayoma and is Yibum. Patana, the Brisa quotes a dissenting view, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer Amru, even though L'mafreya, we now know that he was Konaha with that Yibum, nevertheless, he's not allowed to remain married to her. Because when he had a relationship with her, she was a Safek Erva of Eshesach, a Safek Isa Koris. And therefore the Chacham said, Yotzi beget, he's going to have to divorce her. Again, she doesn't need Chalitza because the marriage was a valid marriage, the Yibum was valid. Omar Rava, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Eliezer, Amru Davrech. Rava is going to try to prove that Rabbi Eliezer is on the same page. Rabbi Meir is on the same page as Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer, Moran, we impose a penalty on him, and because he violated what the Rabbanan told him, and he was Miyabimu Beres, he has to divorce her, even though the Vlad is not a Vlad Shel Kayoma. And Rabbi Meir has something very similar in a Brisa, the Sanya Lo Yisa Adamu Beres Chavero Meinekes Chavero. It means that so-and-so died or divorced his wife, she is pregnant or nursing, no one's allowed to marry her for 24 months. That's the time period that the child needs absolutely for Yanika, for nursing. The Imnasa Yotzi, the Lo Yachzir Lo Misdivrei Rabbi Meir. Once again, we're going to impose a knas because he married her without waiting until after the 24 months. We're going to force him to divorce her, and he'll never be able to marry. That's Rabbi Meir's opinion. Chachamim Omrim Yotzi. In the meantime, he should divorce her until the end, the termination of the 24-month period, and then Shagias Mano Yichlos, then he can marry. Right now, he's got to divorce her. That's the Chacham. Now, Abai is going to give two explanations why he doesn't think that Rava's analogy between Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Meir, is a valid analogy. Number one, how do you know that they both hold the same thing to Maloi? Ad kan lo kam Rabbi Eliezer hacha. When does Rabbi Eliezer impose a knas on the Yavam who jumped the gun and he was miyabim his meuberes, and now we force him to divorce her by marrying her, by being Mekayim Yibum, he puts himself into a dangerous situation for Safek Yisrael Eishes Ach, because maybe the Vlad will be a Vlad Shel Kayoma. And if he's being mezalzel in this Isser Eishes Ach, he deserves a knas. And even though she gave birth to a miscarriage, she miscarried, nevertheless, he's going to have to divorce his wife. But there, in the case of a man who marries a pregnant woman or a nursing woman, the Rabbanan, he violated the worst case scenario, and Isa the Rabbanan, they made a takana that he should marry her. Then it could very well be that even Rabbi Eliezer would agree to the Rabbanan. And Kirabanan Sfirle Shalokan Su Shiyotzia Olamis. Let him deliver a get for the time being until the time has passed, and then he could remarry her. Inami, another possible distinction between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Meir. Ad kan lo kama Rabbi Meir hasam elamishum derabanan dafka punkfaket, that because there's a violation of zilzal of a derabanan, is chachamim asu chizik l'divrem yosem mishal Torah. They have to be very concerned and worried that people are going to start being mezalzel in isuri derabanan. Therefore, they impose the knas, and he has to divorce her, and he can never marry. And this will send a warning message to others. They shouldn't do what he did. Aval hacham, in the case of a man who went ahead and he had a beer with his Yevamot muberes, and he puts himself into a suffik iser ervas eishes ach karis doraisa, we don't have to worry that people are going to follow suit. They're going to imitate his lead, and they'll also be mizalzel in an iser or suffik iser karis doraisa. As Mifresh Parsha, people will be careful to avoid yibum in such a situation where she's pregnant and we don't know the final outcome. And it could be in this case, even Rabbi Meir would be moded that there's no need for the Chacham to impose such a knas. Omar Rava, u'ledivrei Chachamim, make sure, says Rava, that you read the Chachamim precisely. In this case where he was miyabim the muberes, what happens? You could say, let him be porish, and we'll wait to see the outcome. Is a vlad shel kayom, a vlad sheina shel kayom? No, that's not shot. We're not sitting in the wings and waiting. But yotzia beget. He has to deliver a get, and then man, and we get to the point at which we know for sure that the vlad is a vlad sheina shel kayom, and then he will remarry. I could prove to you from the language of the Brisa. The Ketani, it says in the Brisa, Yotzi. The lo Ketani Yafich. It doesn't say that he should separate himself and be Porish ad Shegizmano. It says Yotzi and a beget. Shmamina. That's a proof for Rav. Now, according to the Chachamim, after the Yibum to Muberes, and we wait that period of time to know and clarify whether or not she gave birth to a Ben Kayoma and Nefel, what's going to be the deal if a man marries a pregnant woman, which he's not allowed to do, or a nursing woman, which he's not allowed to do? And let's say that person's a Kohen. Are you going to tell me that he has to divorce his wife because of a knas, that he violated the Sisur according to Chachamim, and that means he'll never be able to remarry her? Amalei Rav Ashi, Rav Hoshia, Berei Ravidi, Chasam, in Shabbos on Daf Kuf Lamed Hey, Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, Kol Sheshah Be'adam Shloshim Yom Eino Nefa. So the emphasis here is on Shah. Shah means literally the child has to last for 30 days. If he doesn't last for 30 days, I don't care what happens. But if he died before day 30, he's considered a nefel. After 30 days, he's a ben. He's alive, he's viable, and therefore the father does not generate a zikas yibum, and the mother is p'tura min hachalitza, etc., etc. That's what the Gemara is medayik. Lo shaha. If, let's say, some tragedy befell and the child didn't live till 30 days, then tzveika havi, we have a suffix nefel. And therefore the mother is going to need chalitza, misafik. Of course, ain't a mesyabemes in the suffix. The itmar, and in this situation of meis havlad, b'toch shloshim yom, so we don't know whether the vlad is a nefel or ben kayoma. The omdom and his kadsha, after a certain period of time, the Yevamot, this kadsha l'odom in ashuk, she got married to someone from the shuk. She thought that she doesn't need yibum at all, neither yibum nor chalitza, because she already had a child. So since she had a child, she assumes there was no zika for yibum. She doesn't need chalitza, and she married someone to the shuk. So does she need chalitza? Again, if she married a Kohen, that's a dangerous, no irreversible situation. Avina betrayed the Rav Amar. Since Rav Shimon Gamliel holds that there's a suffix whether we should treat the vlad as a nefel or as a ben kayoma, therefore, im Eishes Yisraeli choletzes, im Eishes Kohen he ain't a choletzes. So again, Rav Shimon Gamliel holds that if there's a suffix, and there is a suffix, whether or not the vlad is a nefel or a ben kayoma, so therefore, as far as the Yevamot is concerned, assuming she's married to a Yisrael, is harezo choletzes, right? Because the child died before the 30th day. She's muteres l'bayla, because we're not sure if she has the din of an eishesach, she eish labonim or eishesach she'ein labonim, because the vlad is something nefel. So therefore, she needs chalitz on the tzad that he was a nefel. The eishes koheni, which means that if we require chalitza, then te'aser l'bayla, because the Rabbana consider a chalutza like a grusha, is therefore ain't a choletzes. We don't want to go that far to require chalitza in a way that will aser her al bailos a coin, and therefore we're going to rely on divrei chachamim that most women, if you recall, on Amanal, will give birth after the full term, and the vlad is not a nefel. So we'll be making the chazaka that she's muteres l'shuk, and therefore she doesn't need chalitza. So again, we won't impose chalitza to the extent that it will aser al bailo liolam void, meaning in the case where she's married to a Kohen. And we're relying on the Shitas Chachamim that we have every reason to assume, unless we know otherwise, that the Vlad will be a Vlad ben Kayama Mazel Tov. It's not an Ephel, because most women give birth to a Vlad shel Kayama. And she remains Muteres L'Shuk. She doesn't need Chalitza, Machmas Sfeiko Shel Rav Shimon Gamliel. We reject Rav Shimon Gamliel, we hold like the Chachamim. Rav Misharshia, Mishmei de Rav Amar, Achazo, Biachazo, Choletzes. Whether she's married to a Kohen or married to Yisrael, whether she's married to Yisrael or married to a Kohen, Choletzes, you need Chalitza. And if her husband's a Kohen, she's Asura L'Bayil Yola. Because we are Choshish for Rav Shimon Gamliel. We can't just write Rav Shimon Gamliel off the map. Rav Shimon Gamliel requires, in order to establish B'vada'ut, to be definite about the fact that the child is a Ben Kayom, he requires that the child live till day 30. The child didn't make it to day 30 because the roof caved in on. Amalei Ravina l'Rav Misharshia, be'urta Amar Rav Hachi, and be'tzafra hadarbe. So that's here on the top of Daf Lamed Zayin Amid Aleph.